guys, welcome back to the BMW Blog podcast. It has been a while, but today we have a very special guest, and I am pleased to introduce to you Nikki Shields. You might have seen her on the Formula E broadcast because she's kind of the face of Formula E. She's been presenting the Formula E races for quite some time, actually, probably from the very, very early days. She's also a journalist, of course, a YouTuber, and she's kind of an expert in the electromobility field. So today we have a lot of topics to talk about. Nikki, welcome.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction. Thank you very much for having me. And yes,
thanks for joining.
It's kind of sad. I started at the beginning of Formula E.
I know. It's
2014.
Actually. Is it 2014? Because I remember first time meeting you or seeing you doing the broadcast. Maybe it was the Berlin E-Prix, but I don't know if it was 14 or 15. BMW was not involved, but I do remember the broadcast at that time. So how about we start with that? Let's just jump right in. How did you get into the Formula E broadcasting?
Start at the very beginning. Okay, so I'll try and cut it wasn't that long of a story, but so my original background, I suppose, I did biological sciences at university. Okay. I went to university in a place called Bristol, which is in the southwest of England, and it's where they have all the sort of BBC National History production companies based. They produce a lot of the David Attenborough shows, wildlife programs. So my sort of dream, I suppose you could call it, was to work as a kind of science wildlife broadcaster, presenter. And so anyway, I got into the world of television and started presenting around sustainability and environmental issues. But sort of a hidden secret of mine, I suppose. My dirty little secret was that I was a huge Formula One fan and a huge racing fan. So I, grew up, obviously, as many of, I'm sure your listeners have done the same, kind of grown up watching racing with their father, although hopefully we'll change that. People are going to be saying their mother and father in the next generation. Yeah. And we did karting together. We kind of went to racetracks together. He's big into his cars as well, as is both my grandfathers. So I was always a bit of a petrol head. And then, but that was very much just a hobby, just a passion of mine. Never, ever, ever, ever in a million years did I think I would actually work in the industry. It was just something that I enjoyed doing as a passion. And then, I did a show on the future of electric cars back in it was probably 2012. And you can imagine the future of electric cars. Well, they were pretty bad. They were pretty bad.
Probably people were looking at you like, you're nuts and it's never going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And also I was investigating it. I wasn't a fan of it. I was sort of, I was actually quite a cynic of it, sort of thinking good luck. I'm going to go home with my dad in his BMW M3 and how are we going to have fun driving this? And so I would say we did a piece with, and it's Unleaf and a Renault Zoe, and it was quite funny because I couldn't get the charging points to work. The infrastructure was terrible. Overall, I would say the experience was very average. But as part of this interview, the guys at Renault, who we interviewed, told me about this racing championship they're involved in, Formula E. And I have to admit, again, I was like, good luck. Racing with no noise. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But I then sort of went home and thought about it. And I was like, well, actually, because they were telling me about the spec of the car, 0 to 100 in under 3 seconds, and they showed me pictures of the car. And I was like, well, actually, putting the noise to one side, the rest of it sounds super cool. City street circuits, racing in some of the world's most iconic cities. And actually, for me, it kind of meant it was like the perfect hybrid of ticking my environmentalist credentials, but then also my love for racing. And that's kind of how it all started. I then got in touch with Formula E and said, look, if you need a presenter, pit lane reporter, I'm here, I'm willing. I can talk about the battery technology. And yes, they got me in, and as they say, the rest is history. I gave Alejandro Gag a lesson in how a lithium-ion battery works in my final interview. He's the CEO of Formula E, and I think, that stuck in their memory, and that's one of the reasons I got the job.
Nice. All right. So speaking of history, so tell me how the Formula E has changed over the years. I mean, what do you see different now versus, 2014?
Well, I think I mean, now people just get it. You know, people get electric cars. They understand why we exist. You know, I don't need to tell you and anyone who's listening. You know, we all know how the legislation is changing around our road cars, and so I think today everyone, but they understand racing. They understand, electric racing. They understand the purpose of it and why we need it. The cars are really quite fast. They look really cool.
Yeah.
We raced in the sort of the heart of some of the world's most iconic cities, and we've got an amazing driver lineup. You know, former Formula One winners, F2 champions, Le Mans winners, WEC champions. You know, we have an incredible lineup of drivers, and also manufacturers as well. If you look, we've got some of the greatest manufacturers involved in Formula E, from Jaguar to Porsche. The list goes on. But when we first started, that story wasn't really quite so true. And, you know, it was very difficult to get the big car manufacturers involved because we were obviously kind of one of the first to, the first FIA racing championship that was electric to exist. And, you know, you looked around, no one was driving electric cars. No one was particularly interested in electric cars. Why did we need to be? It was mainly the kind of, I suppose there were a few pioneers and innovators who believed in it. And that was it. And we did have, obviously, you know, we had a few big names back then. I mean, you've got, and actually, you know, the likes of Sam Bird, Lucas de Grassi, Jerome D'Ambrosio, they're still in the championship and involved in the championship today. But it was, you know, it was definitely hard to get, you know, names like BMW, who then later did get involved in Formula E. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
What do you think about all this? Yeah, it's changed a lot, quite a bit. I mean, it's changed even over the last 2 years, because now you see some automakers leaving the championship. Yeah. So I'm actually wondering, what's your take on that?
I think it's a combination of lots of different things. I mean, you know, I think one of the main reasons is that Audi are leaving. So we've got Audi. Well, it's the Germans are leaving. It's the mass Germans, exodus. It's Audi and BMW who've left for this season, and then Mercedes will eventually leave next season. And I think, there are a number of reasons. I mean, commitments to other racing championships, for example, Audi going across to the Le Mans hydrogen cars. And then there is obviously an amount that you need to... There's this technology development, isn't there, from the racetrack to road cars. And perhaps there is a point where maybe the likes of BMW have thought, actually, we've learned what we needed to learn. You know, we've done as much as we can here, because it is, at the end of the day, a testing ground. And if they're not continuing to learn more each time, it's an expensive thing to be involved in. The other thing is the price has gone up. It was a lot cheaper when we first started. You know, now it's obviously not nearly as expensive as joining a Formula One team, but, you know, it's still a big cost to any car manufacturer to be involved in. And then I think Mercedes, they were slightly unexpected because I mean, Toto Wolff, you know, he's been down to so many Formula E races and they've been really, really committed. But I think it came from the powers above, and it was maybe a bigger strategic play in that field. But no, it will be very sad to leave them. But you know what, we've still got so many other manufacturers involved. You know, DS are huge, the most successful team involved in Formula E, with I think three drivers and two constructors championships. And then there's Envision, we've got Jaguar, as we've mentioned, Mahindra, huge Indian team. I mean, they're very big in India when it comes to electric cars. So I think, you know, the fact that we've still got, I mean, Penske Racing, obviously a huge name in the States, Venturi, who are a Monaco-based team. So I think it is obviously sad to see some of these big names leave, because they have been part of it. I mean, BMW have actually been part of it really in the very early days, because they brought in the BMW i8 safety car, and the i3 was the sort of medical car. Exactly. So they were involved in it even before they had a team. Were competing. Yeah, exactly. But it's not going to affect the sport or anything like that. You know, there are plenty of car manufacturers out there. Exactly. And actually, I think fewer is maybe a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think even newer companies, they might join also, like, you know, companies you don't even expect, like startups and all of that. So I think we'll see maybe even battery companies might be joining.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, versus an automaker. But what do you think about city racing versus, you know, track racing? Do you think that's one of the reasons why the races were maybe not as popular as Formula One, or which format do you think it's best? Because now you've been to all the cities and you've been to different track formats too, so you definitely have some experience with that one.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I love street racing. You know, you look at what happened in Monaco this season.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was phenomenal. You know, Monaco in Formula One is notoriously known as the street track that you can't pass on. And then Formula E came in. We've raced in Monaco before, but this was the first time we actually did the sort of the full, very similar to the Formula One track.
Full track, yeah.
So it was like the full circuit. And boy, it was one of the most exciting races we've seen in Formula E. There was so much overtaking. And so I think that was just like a perfect demonstration to say, okay, well, maybe you can't in Formula One, but actually we can pass in Formula E. And that's why street circuits can be so much fun. I mean, conversely, you look at the Formula One race that they just had in Jeddah. That was one of the most exciting F1 races based on a street circuit. So, I mean, for me, okay, it's tricky because sometimes it would be nice to have a little bit of extra runoff area. And occasionally maybe the circuits are a little bit too tight. And so we've seen a couple of times before, I think it was in Rome, where we had a really big pile up. Yeah. And, you know, at the end of the day, you just want to see good wheel-to-wheel racing. You don't want to see a massive pile up and then a delay of 20 minutes to get all the cars back on track, you know, debris cleared. It just delays things. It's a bit stop-starty, so you can't get into it. So I would say, you know, as long as it's not a circuit maybe that's quite so tight, you know, and you consequently have lots of too many accidents, too many safety cars. But actually, I would go street circuit every time. And also it just means that you're in an amazing city. You know, you're in the heart of Paris or Monaco or Mexico City. Actually, Mexico City is a slightly different one.
It is a different one.
I've got that one in my mind because it's our second race of the calendar. But, you know, we've raced in, I don't know, Long Beach, for example, Miami. But yeah, my point being is that, you know, when you're in the heart of these iconic cities, you've got these awesome backdrops, and it just makes it so special rather than... Don't get me wrong, I love Silverstone. I've spent many a time at Silverstone, but it's sort of a racetrack plonked in the middle of nowhere. And if you're there for a weekend of racing, there's nothing much else to do apart from wander around the racetrack. So I do think there's something very special about a street circuit.
Gotcha. So aside from Monaco, what would be your favorite city that you've been to with Formula E?
So we did go to, I think it was maybe the second season, or maybe even the first. Can't remember. All bloods into one. We went to Moscow in Russia.
Moscow, really?
Now that was amazing because we were racing around like proper, when we say in the heart of an iconic city. It was literally around St. Basil's Cathedral, our TV compound backed onto the Kremlin. And it was just one of those moments thinking, hang on a minute, we're racing here? And I'd been to Moscow before as a tourist and was just like, this is like mind-blowing that we've actually built a racetrack on these streets. So that was a cool one. And then, I mean, Hong Kong's very special as well.
Of course,
It kind of gets into the dusk sort of time. It really looks really pretty, but I mean,
I was supposed to go to Seoul actually. 2020 there was supposed to be a Seoul race, and I was supposed to go, and unfortunately that didn't happen. I was excited for that one.
Got in the way of that one.
I mean, I did go to quite a few actually. I went to Rome when we first met also.
Rome's amazing.
It is amazing, but it's so disorganized.
And also I think I always say Rome's amazing. I think I'm just thinking with my stomach when I say that. The food in Rome is amazing.
It is amazing.
The racing and the racetrack and the... Yeah, maybe not.
It's all a negotiation there, basically. You know, even if you have the right credentials, it takes like a while to get around. You know, it's always a negotiation with the bodyguards and all of that.
Brilliant.
But, cool. So last question on the Formula E. I'm sure you often get this question. You know, Formula One, Formula E.
Yeah.
When people ask you, you know, which one has a better future, or even though actually might not be the right question. Do you think eventually Formula One will go even more towards electrification, and how will those things play in?
I mean, so it's a tough one. I mean, it is quite funny how I think Formula One and Formula E do get compared a lot. You know, no one's ever asked me about Formula E compared to the World Endurance Championship or Rallycross or rally cars. Like it is, I guess, obviously because they sort of look quite similar in that perspective. But they are two completely different motorsports. They are not related at all.
Sure.
But I think, mainly because of the way the cars look, I suppose, the sort of open wheel, single-seater, they get compared a lot. You know, Formula One ultimately has been going for over 70 years. You know, Formula E is going into season 8. So I think it's a big compliment to Formula E to ever be even like put in the same room as Formula One, because, you know, to be compared at that point is an amazing achievement.
Yeah.
Formula One will never go, or can't go electric, because Formula E have the exclusive rights to be the only electrified FIA championship.
Gotcha.
So they will always exist side by side, unless, of course, Formula E suddenly wanted to be bought out by Formula One and they came up with some kind of deal. But, you know, it's not like Formula One could just suddenly copy what Formula E are doing and say, oh, actually, we've changed our mind. We're going to run a fully electric powertrain now. Good luck, Formula E. That could never happen.
Gotcha.
And I think from speaking, I actually had a really interesting chat with Ross Brawn recently, you know, MD and technical director of F1. And he was just, you know, he's still very much committed, I think, to the synthetic fuels, trying to create a kind of circular cycle where ultimately, okay, they might not be zero emission at the tailpipe, but if you can create some sort of net zero carbon effect from your synthetic fuels, then this could be a kind of green way to move forward. And then the other one, which, you know, is talked about a lot, of course, is hydrogen as well. You know, how to make hydrogen work. So I think Formula One will probably go in the direction of either of those two at the moment, if they can get it to make it work. I also think, you know, the electric, you know, our batteries for electric cars, they're not the capabilities. They wouldn't be able to do a 2-hour long race at those kind of speeds, at those kind of tracks.
Sure.
Obviously, the technology is developing and batteries are becoming more efficient. However, I do think we're still a way off before you could actually, you know, make Formula One electric and still expect the same kind of racing and the same, you know, for the same durations. So,
good points.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that happen anytime soon. But I think ultimately, you know, what you've got to remember is that the manufacturers, everyone involved in Formula One, is there because of that. Well, a lot of it is because of that transfer of technology from the race car to the road car. And if they have a powertrain that can no longer be used in consumer cars, or the technology can no longer be in consumer cars, then you're going to see people drop out and pull out. You know, there's no point in it existing. So whatever they do, Formula One needs to keep moving with the times. Otherwise, they'll start losing manufacturers, I think.
Understood. You mentioned earlier LMDh. What do you think about that racing format? I think BMW is going to join that, Audi, Porsche. I'm sure some others will follow as well.
Yeah, I think it looks really cool. I mean, I'm a huge fan of anything that is supporting another alternative energy, you know, for our cars. We know that electric has its limits. I think it is a brilliant short to medium term solution, particularly for consumer cars. But if we're looking at anything bigger than that, you know, bigger transport from
trucks,
lorries, exactly, to planes, to boats, to all of that, then again, those heavy batteries do have their limits, whereas that the sort of energy density that you can get from hydrogen is just amazing. So I think the fact that they're moving into that, we do need racing again to be the test bed to start looking into this area. So I think it's going to be very cool, although I'm just very sad that they pinched Audi.
I know, yeah.
Because it's not the same. You know, we've had Audi in Formula E since the very beginning. They, you know, Formula E is Audi, Audi is Formula E. So we will miss them, and you know, having LMDh in the pit lane and things like that. But no, I'm very excited actually to see how that goes. I think it's very exciting.
Who's your favorite driver in Formula E, or one that you get most laughs with?
Ooh, now they're two different questions there.
Okay, two different questions. All right.
So I'd say the one that you can always get the most laughs with is Antonio Felix da Costa.
He's awesome. I actually known him from...
Yeah, exactly.
He's awesome. I've actually known him from BMW times. He's a great guy. Really great guy. Yeah.
Exactly. And he always comes across as
funny.
like, you know, whatever the situation... Most of the time, he's always very positive, he's relaxed, he's funny, and he is very like that in real life. So he's just a great, very, very likable character. Definitely one of the most popular drivers in the pit lane, that's for sure. And then... I suppose I'd have to give that answer. Otherwise, I'm like, who do I like in terms of what their driving style, their capability?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of love what Jake Dennis has done, actually, like come into Formula E as this just like, you know, rookie, you know, so chilled, very quietly confident, you know, not arrogant, but kind of just, you know, I'm just going to give it my all, do what I can. And he... he's also a very sort of likable character in the paddock as well. That's for sure.
Did he sign up with another team?
Yeah, so he's moved across to Andretti, Avalanche Andretti, as they're now called.
So staying with the Andretti team though, but not with the BMW.
Exactly.
Drivetrain.
So staying so sort of staying with the same guys.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, but they're actually. I mean, you know, you got to say though. A huge credit actually to the Formula E drivers, because they're a really good bunch. They're a lovely bunch to work with. There's none of this kind of arrogance, like, oh no, I'm not going to do an interview with you now. I've you know, no divas. There are no divas allowed in Formula E. I mean, maybe the odd one gets through. John Eric Byrne, but other than that, you know, but he's also, you know, a lovely guy to interview as well, and you know, we'll do what they can. So I would say there is this, we can't sort of call ourselves this Formula E family, and it really does feel like that. And everyone's there to just sort of get on and put on a good show.
Gotcha. All right, so now let's talk about your other part of life, where you're actually an automotive journalist and YouTuber. Tell me about your new website. I think it's not new anymore. It's maybe a couple of years old now, maybe less than that.
Feels new.
Tell me about that. And also tell me about some of the electric cars that you've been driven lately that you've been excited about. You know, it doesn't have to be a BMW brand. I mean, we test a lot of cars too, not just BMWs.
Yeah, sure. Well, so it's called electrifying.com. And we launched it pretty much at the beginning of lockdown in 2020.
Perfect timing.
Just when life was pretty much rock bottom, we were like, let's launch a new business. And I'm just so glad we carried on and did it anyway, because we just thought, look, we've got nothing to lose. Fortunately, we'd shot a lot of content already. So we were like, let's just crack on and go for it. And it's worked out. It's definitely, it's been the best decision we could have made to carry on with it. And it is pretty much a one-stop shop digital platform for everything you need to know about electric cars. So whether you're thinking about making the switch to electric cars, you know, you just need a bit of advice. There's a lot of sort of, I suppose, myths out there about what you can and you can't do with electric cars. Can you take them in car washes? Will it, you know, explode in the rain? You know, can I plug in the rain? Am I going to get electrocuted? All of these funny little things that, to be fair, if you don't work in the industry and have never experienced it before, they're all very valid questions. But don't worry, you won't get electrocuted if it does start to rain in your electric car or charger. But yeah, so, and then we, of course, do all the car reviews that you would imagine. So any new and old. We've been doing an old what do we do? An old Ferrari that's been retrofitted into an electric car, and a Porsche as well with Everati. But
nice.
Yeah. So anyway, we get to experience
out of the new ones,
the cheap ones, the expensive ones, and what? Yeah. So what have I driven recently that I really liked? Well, I mean, there's a couple that have really sort of, I guess, everyone's been talking about. You know, there is the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which has captured a lot of everyone's imagination. And then there is, I mean, of course, most recently, there is the BMW iX, actually,
Yeah,
which has just been, an absolutely, well, I think, if you can look past that grille, I love it. It's just
sound like me now.
beautiful. Yeah. And but I feel like you can also, when a new car comes out, it's very difficult to compare old versus new, isn't it? So everyone's kind of hung up on the grille. But I'm just so, I'm very adaptable. I'm very versatile. I've got used to it really quickly. And then you see past it, and then the rest of it is just amazing. The interior, like the styling, it's just, it doesn't really compare. I can't think of another car on the market that I'm like, oh, it's like this. Because it's not. It really is one of a kind. And it has, an incredible range. It's the one car that I feel like I would be able to drive, and it kind of ticks all the boxes for me. I've got a family. I want a big car. I need a decent sized boot. I like a big SUV, not these, crossover SUVs. And a decent range. It needs to have a big chunky range. Okay, of course it comes with the big chunky price tag as well, but
it does, yeah.
but I love it. I love it. So that's definitely caught all of our imaginations at the moment.
Nice.
And then
They also have another one coming out in a couple of weeks, the iX M60.
Oh, yeah.
I saw the car. It's a monster. Yeah. I haven't driven it yet, but I will drive it next year. But it's a monster from what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just
and that will be exciting.
Suddenly, and having the M, associated with
the
electric range.
Exactly, performance and electric range. But from the other brands, what's your take on the American automakers? So let's say Tesla, or more recently Rivian. Even though Lucid is not American, really, but I guess it's popular here. Have you had a chance to spend time with any of those products yet? Or
I mean, Tesla, they're just like. I feel like, well, with their cars, actually, I was going to say they get it right every time. Although, whenever we do a sort of car review, sometimes we do twin tests, and whatever comes up against the Tesla, it's just like, the chances are it's never going to win, because the Tesla is just so good, and particularly with that, you cannot fault the fact that they went ahead and they set up that supercharger network. And just to have that supercharger network is the thing that I think, sets them apart from everyone
brilliant
else.
Move.
And it just puts your mind at rest, when particularly for me, I have a job where I'm not going just from A to B, B to A to B, but I'm not doing the same commute every day. I'm going here, there, everywhere, and I'm doing journeys that I've never done before, and I need reliability. And the public charging network at the moment is not reliable. It's usable, but if you've got to get somewhere at a certain time, and you can allow 20 minutes for a quick top up on at your charging point, then you need something reliable, and our service stations it's not always the case. So I think having that supercharger network just suddenly sets Tesla apart, whatever the design of the car, however far it can go, because it has a supercharger network. You're suddenly like, that's the game changer. Having said all of that, I actually don't like the design of the Tesla. I don't like the way any of them look from the outside, really, and I don't like the interior.
But what about the Cybertruck?
I find like, okay, that's slightly different.
See, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
Okay, putting the Cybertruck to the side, the interior, because this is just something again that we sort of talk about quite a lot.
Yeah.
The interior it's too minimalistic. It's too futuristic, and that is basically, again, the Cybertruck's gone.
Yeah.
It's too much. I can't cope with that. I don't want this future. I just want a nice, normal car. I like a car that I'm familiar with, which I guess is why I like the iX so much, because it's not really futuristic and out there or minimalistic or trying to be different. It's just a really nicely built car. And I just feel like the interiors of Teslas are just, they're just a bit annoying. I don't want to use the screen every time I have to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, if I
but
want to
it's funny you
adapt
say
my
that, though.
wing mirrors.
It is funny you complain about that, because I used to do the same thing, and I used to tell the Germans about that as well, and they used to laugh about Tesla quite a bit, especially the German engineers.
Oh, yeah.
And now they're trying to mimic them quite a bit. And you're going to see that even more in the future than you've seen so far, from what I know.
No, you're right. You're right. And everyone's going towards, like, let's use the big screen in the middle.
Exactly.
Let's keep
You
all
look
the
at the
buttons
Mercedes too.
to a sort of minimum, but which I don't mind, because they're sort of, at the moment, it's a bit of a hybrid. You know, you've still got some buttons, you know, for like your radio or your volume or whatever. I just find it annoying when you're driving as well. I find it dangerous. You know, I can change my wing mirrors when I'm driving without taking my eyes off the road. How are you going to change your wing mirrors while driving on that screen? You're like, where is it? You eventually find it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stuck
from a
in my
usability
ways.
perspective, yeah.
And just inside as well, it's just...
I think what bothers me the most are really the fingerprints that I see constantly on, on the screens.
Exactly, reflections. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Oh, they're horrible.
Really.
Yeah,
I can deal with all the other stuff, and
covered in makeup,
stress me nuts.
Plonked all over.
Constantly have to have a cloth to clean it up.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I mean, I give them credit, especially for the Supercharged network. It's the same. It's funny you say that, you know, because you have the same issues in the UK that we have in the US in certain areas, because I consider California not part of the U.S. when it comes to electromobility. They're like on their own land. But in places like where I live in Chicago and other major cities, the network is terrible for non-Tesla products. And that's what makes the adoption of electric cars here a little bit harder. And that's what people like they like Teslas, because it's so easy to charge almost everywhere. And you're absolutely right. They definitely nailed that. It's kind of like the chicken and egg problem, but they kind of figured out that they can do both at the same time. I don't know how they did that, but they built a product and a network, and they've done a great job. So I give them credit for all of that, honestly.
Exactly. Well, totally. And, you know, massive credit. It really, they have led the charge on it all. You know, if it wasn't for them kind of going out first with it, I think we would actually be quite a way behind still, for sure.
Exactly. Or the electric truck scene. Or they definitely did. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was thinking about Rivian now, but how are the electric trucks seen in the UK? Because I know they're such an American thing, you know. And honestly, I'm going to start with this. When I looked at the Rivian product first, I was like, maybe. But the more that I looked at it, and even though I will never buy a pickup truck, like ever. I'm just not a type. I mean, I'm just not a type of pickup truck guy. But looking at the Rivian, I would actually buy it. It's an interesting product. It's not because I need a pickup truck space or a cargo and all of that. It's just cool. I think it's a cool, nifty product,
exactly
and it's
how
getting.
I would describe it. Exactly. Yeah. It is so cool. And actually, we got Ginny. I think she went out to. It was
from California.
Yeah, was the LA Auto Show?
It was a media lounge.
And you know, and just the response that we got on our social from that car was
crazy.
Huge. Everyone loves it. So interested by it. I still find those. I can't. The little sort of oval headlights, you know, that come in across the strip. It just makes it look like a little character. It's like a little face. You know, I feel like it's going to start talking to you at any point.
It's a fun-looking car.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It is.
Now, to move to the higher end, I saw a recent interview. I'm not sure if it was recent, but I think it was you that actually done the interview with the CEO of Rimac.
Yes.
Was it you?
I did. Yeah. Matty.
Yeah. So, Matt. So tell me about that. What do you think about them? What do you think about, you know, what they're trying to do? It's quite an interesting story. It's actually a fascinating story from my point of view, because it's more of a tech company than anything else. But, you know, anything you'd like to share about your experience with them?
I mean, so Matty Rimac. He pronounced it in Croatian Rimac. It's spelt Rimac.
Yeah, Rimac,
And he is 33 years old.
I know, it's insane.
And he's about to become the CEO of Bugatti Rimac.
Bugatti.
Like, it's unheard of. You know, Bugatti is a company that's been running for over 100 years. It's Bugatti. It's like, you know, one of the greatest names in the automotive industry with so much history and heritage. And this guy, this young entrepreneur, has just been named as their future CEO. It is absolutely incredible, but he so deserves it because I, funnily enough, met him actually when Formula E first started back in 2014 because he developed an electric car called the Rimac. I think it was the Concept One. Yeah. So it was the very first Rimac that he developed, and that was going to be, and it was actually for a couple of seasons, the safety car before the BMW i8 took over. Now, again, you could already spot that he was just this like genius, you know, this young, really innovative guy. The fact that he
was really young back then.
Yeah, I know. He would have been about like 25 or something.
6. Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, and it really is. And because actually when I did this interview with Matty, we went to his hometown in Croatia. We actually went back to the school that he went to. We met his professor, and it was his professor that kind of spotted him as this, this amazing. He was an inventor, basically. I would say that's how he kind of described him as. And he put him forward into all of these competitions. And he just kept winning them, and he sort of led them at a local level, and then at a county level, and then, you know, at a country level. And I think obviously it just sort of fed his passion and his confidence as well, because they said he wasn't a particularly confident guy at school. He got bullied a bit, but because this professor had sort of spotted that he was obviously a really gifted student, put him forward for these competitions, built up his confidence, and he spotted this opportunity and saw, right, electric cars, they are going to be the future. I'm going to, and he's always been a huge sort of motorsport or an automotive fan. I'm going to go one step further and make my own electric car, not just an electric car, like a supercar, you know, with speeds. Well, it's the new one that's just come out is speeds of 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in under 2 seconds.
It's insane.
Which is, it is insane.
Mind blowing. I mean, he's done a great job, and honestly, building a company at that level out of Eastern Europe, it's even more impressive, right? I mean, that's, I think, the bigger story than anything else, because if you have the resources in Silicon Valley or even in Berlin or London, it kind of makes sense. But once you come out of, Croatia or any other Eastern European bloc country, I guess it's even bigger, the story, honestly.
100%. And actually, it was very interesting because he said that, and he said he's had so many offers to have the business taken out of Croatia. And let's move it to here. Let's move our plants to, anywhere, as you say, in the States or in Europe. And he's refused it, saying no, this is a Croatian business, we are going to stay here. And he did say it can be a bit tough when it comes to obviously finding the right staff to employ, because your talent pool is a bit smaller, but he's very much sticking to his roots, which is amazing. And he's a hero over there. Like, of course, can only imagine. Hero. Can you imagine if there was
bigger than the president?
Yeah, exactly. He is. He's an absolute. Roll out the red carpet for him, because he's really, he's put Croatia on the map, not just in the automotive world, but in sort of industry level.
Agreed.
So,
do you have any backstories on how he got promoted to being the CEO of Bugatti, or how the VW Group, invested in him and in the company?
Because they're now a big shareholder in Rimac.
Rimac,
exactly. Rimac, so that, other than that, no, not really.
Gotcha. So, I mean, it's a huge bet for VW Group to name him the CEO of Bugatti, right? I mean, and he's got some really big shoes to fill too. I mean, it's a different company clearly than Rimac. So
absolutely. I mean, obviously they know that they need to be, I suppose ultimately Bugatti know that they need to become electrified, and who better to do that than the guy who has just created the world's fastest electric car. That's what Bugatti want to be. They want to be the world's fastest electric car. So why not get the guy who's just done it for his own company to come over and do it for them? But it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Rimac, if it's, stays a brand within its own right, or will just completely merge.
Be absorbed. Yeah, exactly. Out of the, are there any other European startups in the electric world that you've met or you've seen that you're excited about? I mean, we don't get to hear much about them, on this side of the pond, but I was kind of wondering if you've come across anything that's interesting.
Anything new? Not really. I think what is quite interesting at the moment is just there are a lot of car companies coming out that are retrofitting classic cars. So there's a really interesting company called Lunas, which they kind of retrofit. They've done like Rolls-Royce, Bentleys, really, really beautiful old classic cars. I mean, there's quite a few of them actually, different companies popping up. So I suppose they're the sort of small, unique boutique companies that I'm keeping an eye out. There's no one really. It's not like in China where there just seems to be so many.
There are so many right now.
Manufacturers popping up. None that spring to mind in Europe, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be
one.
All right,
then let me switch gears then. Let me give you an easier one then. So when we talk about electric range, I mean, you're the expert in that field, and I have this conversation with some other people that maybe they're not EV focused people, but what do you think the battery capacities will evolve and the technology, and it will get to even further ranges in the future. But is there like a limit where you say, okay, this is enough range that we can get out of a car. Let's start focusing on other things. Maybe on the performance, not the performance, maybe on the efficiency, maybe on the charging. I would say charging would be the number one thing. But is there like a cap that you say, 1,000 kilometers on a single charge, this is more than enough. Stop spending time on that. Let's focus on other things.
100%. We always joke about it actually, I quite like this range. It's called your bladder range.
Okay.
Because when you're doing a long distance journey, what's going to go first? 8, tiredness. We're always told you've got to take a break, and also you got to go to the toilet. So there is no point in carrying around, no matter how good the technology becomes. A heavy, batteries will still always be heavy to a degree. They will get lighter, but let's call them. There is no point in carrying around a heavy battery for 95% of your journeys or even less, when like once in a while you might do 1,000 kilometers without stopping. I mean, it's just crazy. It's pointless, it's inefficient, and it defeats the whole point of driving an electric car. So I really do think we're almost at that point now where 400 miles, sorry, I'm talking in miles here. What's that?
I mean, we actually use miles too. So.
Okay, great, fine. We'll stick with that then. I think something like 400 miles is plenty. I think let's also remember that when it's an official range, 400 miles, so actually if you're driving it slightly above the speed limit on the motorway, you're only maybe going to get 300 out of it.
Exactly.
So I think, and again, that's so 400 is a kind of 300 is your sort of usable, 400 is your official range. So I do think we are really quite close. What just needs to happen now is that the batteries can become lighter and obviously quicker when it comes to charge. So you need to be able to, everywhere needs to be rapid chargers. So, you want to be able to spend 10, 15 minutes charging your car, not 13 hours, which is fine if you have home charging facilities and you can charge at home overnight, not a problem. But if you don't have home charging facilities, which, a lot of people obviously that live in cities
and I don't,
then it needs to be something that you can fill up pretty quickly. So I think we're very close to it on range. 300-400 miles is enough. Well, it's definitely enough for my lifestyle.
Same for mine,
Yeah, I guess it's the big transport, isn't it? The lorries. That's when it becomes different.
Sure.
But again, they've got to take a break as well. They can't just drive for thousands of kilometers.
And I think they have limits too on how much they can drive anyway, so they have to stop.
Exactly.
But I actually got by I've been driving electric cars, the i3 for the last 7 years now. So I've had several ones, and I started with a 60-mile range, and I'm up to 150 in the new one, and I'm still okay with 150. But it's the charging that's the problem, right? And the other thing that kind of concerns me about the fast charging, I love the fast charging part is, but if you buy the car and you keep it long term, I still don't know what are the repercussions or what's the influence on the battery life.
Yeah.
That will be a big one, right?
That's
because
true.
If you keep fast charging all day long, I don't know if they're going to last 10 years. And then that's going to be an issue because it's not easy to swap out the batteries, and the cars just, they're just not useful anymore. Then
I reckon we'll be good for 10 years. I think as long as your battery, you're doing your sort of charge from 10% to 80% and just stick to 80%. Stick to those limits instead of don't try and cram in 100% every time you do a charge, because that will wear the battery down quicker. It's much healthier for your battery if you want to get a long lifespan out of it to just charge it from 10 to 80% and just leave it at that. So I think, I would say confidently saying that 10 years would be a good average lifespan for a battery if it's been looked after. But obviously 10 years is some people have their car for 25 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big difference, and especially like in the US, you see a lot of older cars here. Yeah. Because I think in Europe they tend to. I think the regulations are a little bit stricter on older cars. Here, you can see cars that are falling apart, still being like on the road. So, it's a different world here. So
we get hit with a big bill, a big
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to drive anything old and dirty.
So before we end, because I don't want to keep it too long, I know you have a family to take care of and you're busy too. Tell me about your relationship with BMW. I mean, I think most of the, probably, our followers, they definitely know you from the BMW videos. I mean, you've done quite a few the last few years. I don't even remember what was the first one that you've done with them, maybe the A series or even before that. Yeah. But now you also have a podcast with them that you're doing, which is awesome. I listened to it. So tell me how the two of you connected.
Well, do you know what? As with all these things, I originally was sort of introduced to BMW in the UK, literally just through a friend of mine. He was working with them.
Probably Gavin. Yeah.
It was a guy called Byron, and a friend of mine who'd just done an event with BMW was like, "Oh, Nikki, let me introduce you to BMW. I think you guys should meet." Yeah. So we did, and we went for lunch, and that's how it all started. But it's quite funny because so I have grown up. The reason I suppose I have an affinity to BMW is, again, thanks Dad, but he has only ever had BMWs since I was born. So I guess
I remember you telling me that in our first interview. Yeah, I remember that.
He actually, it's quite funny. He went rogue the other day, and bought,
he did.
He did, and decided to buy a Porsche Panamera. And
I mean, you can't really blame him, I mean, they make some really good products, So, and I think a lot of the BMW owners, they're Porsche owners too.
Okay. So fair enough.
There is not that much competition in between BMW and Porsche. It's usually BMW, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, but BMW and Porsche there is a crossover.
Nice.
And if you talk off the record with the BMW engineers too, they do have an affinity and a respect for the Porsche brand more than any other brands.
That's good. Okay.
So
that's acceptable.
This is not
I won't get unfollowed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's fine.
Well, do you know what's so funny though is that he has talked about getting a different car to BMW. I'm not going to go through all the cars he's had, but for years, every time. Oh, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at that. Never, ever, ever will move away from BMW, even though he talks about it. And then finally, he goes AWOL and gets Porsche, and he had it for about 6 months and has already just bought another BMW.
Oh, he did? So next time you see Domagoj, telling them maybe that large grill, maybe that's what, moved your father over to the Porsche.
Exactly.
See what Domagoj says.
Oh, dear.
But so that's the...
I love it.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so I suppose, BMW, I guess it's just one of those things, isn't it? It has this nostalgic feeling. I feel attached to the brand for no real reason other than that. and then you
got stolen by the German team, right? Basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then it's quite funny, and then
you got poached.
Just different people sort of contacted me, all quite separately, different production companies from Germany, saying, "Oh, Nikki, we need a video. Can you come and do this BMW car review?" And then, "Oh, can you come and do this?" And actually, and then Formula E, of course, with the BMW team, and then doing the BMW Formula E launches. It just again, there was the right fit there.
Exactly.
So it's quite funny. It's all the different things that I've done with BMW, they haven't all just been managed by the same team, or
I know how it works.
It's all just come from sort of slightly different places,
different departments.
And then they asked me to do the podcast Changing Lanes as well, which has been a really lovely experience. Actually, really nice to actually drill down and go quite a lot deeper. It's a podcast for BMW fanatics, that's for sure. And so it's been amazing to just allocate that amount of time sort of researching, really go very deep into certain models or styles or periods of time or whatever it is. The design.
I have to connect with them too. I haven't really talked to that team yet. I got to connect with them one day too.
Yeah.
See if there is something that we can do together. It's an interesting format that they have. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's a really good idea.
And they also give you an i8 at some point, right? You were driving an i8, like a loaner for a little bit.
I did. Well, I had a lovely i8.
And you give it back. Why did you give it back?
Because I had a son. So boring.
So you should have left the husband at home and just, use the car seat for that.
Well, do you know what? I think I probably would have been able to stretch it a bit longer, but I actually had just changed it to the Roadster. At the time, the Roadster had just come out. It was like one of the first Roadsters in the UK, and I had one. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we had a really fun couple of months, and then I had a baby, and there was no room for the child seat.
So what car do you drive now then?
So now I have a BMW X5 plug-in, obviously, and then
of course, beautiful.
Yeah, the
good choice.
latest i3, BMW i3.
Oh, you do? Cool.
Yeah.
Oh
my God, I love the i3.
Which color do you have?
I think it's.
I don't know the names either, all of them, but you can tell me the color and I'll try to guess it.
It's really dark blue.
Okay, so that's the same one that I have. It's called Imperial Blue.
Imperial Blue. It's
it looks black.
Yes,
it looks black. Yeah, that's one that, because I've had in some light.
Yeah.
I have the same one because I've had all the colors possible. So the last one that I got last December, I was like, which color I did not have so far, and that was the only one that was available that I did not have. So I was like, I'm gonna take that one, but. They did come out with another cool one after I picked up mine. Galvanic Gold is this crazy yellow, mustard yellow color. Oh, it is beautiful. That's the one that I wanted to really get, but it came out.
What's the name again?
Galvanic or Galvanic, GALVANIC Gold. Actually, if you Google it, I'm pretty sure BMW Blog will show up with our own video on that car because we're the first ones to actually have it in the US.
Lovely.
Galvanic Gold. It is stunning. Yeah. I love that color.
That is very cool.
But no, I agree. The i3, it's a great family car. It's actually very practical. People don't even realize how practical that car is. Might look quirky and funky, but from a styling perspective, like inside, it's really useful.
But what I find fascinating about the i3 is that I was looking back at like when it first came out. What was it? 2012, I think, 2013, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It hasn't changed. 13, It really hasn't changed, which is amazing, and yet it stood the test of time. It still looks amazing, and the interior is like practical, but also looks cool. It's like modern and futuristic, but it still does all the things that you wanted to do with actual buttons.
Exactly.
I love it, and I actually love the fact that when I pick my son up from nursery, if I bring the i3, he's like, "Yay, Mummy's got the fast car."
It is fast. People don't realize how quick that car is from 0 to like 30, 40 miles per hour. It's quick. Especially with the car seat, it's useful. If you have the front-facing seat with the suicide doors, or not suicide, whatever they call them, the coach doors, it's so much easier to load kids up. And I've seen actually families with 2 kids using the i3 as well, which is brave.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe that's a stretch, right?
I'll let you know. I'll let you know in March.
Yeah, let me know how that goes. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Let me know. But no, the X5 will always get the job done if you need to. And that X5 Hybrid is probably one of their best SUVs they've ever made. I've been saying that for quite some time. They've nailed that. It's a fantastic product. So I'm happy to hear that you're driving that.
Car. Really solid.
If you ever cross over to another brand, let me know. I'm curious what you're gonna get.
I
definitely see in a Rivian. I think a Rivian would be.
Oh my God!
Be a cool one.
If I didn't live in London, yes, but I would never be able to
city?
park that anywhere.
I see. So you're in the city, so
Yeah.
then you're just like me, not a good choice for big cars. Yeah.
I mean, the X5 is fine because, well, it's got so many, assistants. It's got
it
hundreds
does.
of cameras.
It
You can't
does.
really get the parking wrong. But anything bigger than that,
Yep.
I think, would be a nightmare.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're coming up to an hour, so I don't want to keep it too long. It's been my pleasure. Honestly, I've been bugging you for many months, to hop on. So I truly appreciate for taking the time. And hopefully we run into each other soon again. I think we saw each other in Frankfurt briefly.
Yes, we did.
The motor show was
yeah.
kind of strange motor show. I wasn't used to it, to that format, and wasn't as busy as in the past. I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen with
I know.
with motor shows.
They still come back for next
But
year.
Exactly. But hopefully we'll see you at a BMW event or press launch or something.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much
Sure
for having
there will be
me
a
on.
lot
I'm
of-
glad we
thank you.
could finally get round to it.